Hi folks. Well, today I just thought I'd give you a little talk about a phrase you may or may not hear. It's called Auld Reekie, and you may be wondering, what is Auld Reekie? Well, if you're visiting Edinburgh, or perhaps reading about it, you'll see this phrase floating about. Well, actually, Auld Reekie, what it is, it's a nickname for Scotland's fine capital city. But what it actually means is Old Smoky, or perhaps Old Smelly, a combination of that. Reek means smoky and smelly. Yay. Now, that may seem a bit strange to people nowadays, as Edinburgh generally is perceived as being a pretty beautiful city, I would say, and one that's reasonably clean and set in beautiful natural surroundings with lots of fresh air. But not that long ago, in the 1800s and early 1900s, it was often referred to as the Athens of the North, because also of its wonderful architecture. But prior to the building of the new town, the city of Edinburgh had long been seen as being overcrowded, smelly and smoky. And the well-known Scots poet Robert Fergusson wrote a poem called Auld Reekie in the mid-1700s, and he is openly honest about his hometown, talking about this stinking air. So how did this come about? How did Edinburgh end up being called Auld Reekie? Well, we have to go back quite a few years here. Back in the 1400s, security of the city and its inhabitants was a huge issue, and the city's fathers decided what was needed was that the city should be enclosed in a defensive wall. First they built what's called the King's Wall, and then in the 1500s they built the more extensive Flodden Wall. So that's named after the catastrophic Battle of Flodden, in which the Scottish king and most of his nobles were killed. So it was constructed then. Now, actually, the walls were never much good for defensive reasons. But one thing they did do, which wasn't really planned, was they stopped the city expanding out the ways, horizontally. So as the population grew, the city had to expand up the way. And they started building these houses called tenements in the old town. And sometimes these were up to 10 stories high and pretty much seen as the skyscrapers of the day. But this dense concentration of overcrowded high-rise houses was doing something that we are much more familiar with today. They were polluting the atmosphere. From the thousands of coal fires, dank, foul smoke was pumped out through a myriad of chimneys and creating this noxious, choking smog. Compounding this, however, so it wasn't just the smoke, there was the problem with how Edinburgh citizens disposed of their bodily waste. Yay. Mostly they emptied their chamber pots, and residents of the old town tenants would simply open a window and they'd throw it out into the street or the lane or the close, and they'd utter this famous cry, "Gare-de-l'eau," which is from the French word "garde de l'eau," meaning beware of the water. And so this was to warn the people below. So the streets and the tiny narrow closes of the old town ran with this constant stream of excrement and urine. And even when the sewage was piped away, it only went as far as a body of water called the Nor Loch, which was situated just to the north of the old town, where today you would sit sunning yourself in the lovely Princes Street Gardens. That was this old loch called the Nor Loch. So as well as suffering from being a repository for all the waste and effluence of Edinburgh's citizens, this poor body of water also, regrettably, became a popular dumping ground for dead bodies. So there you had 50,000 people living in cramped, overcrowded conditions, emptying their sewage into the street or a small nearby stagnant loch, whilst their coal fires poured out dark sulphurous smoke. Hence the name for Edinburgh, Auld Reekie. Strangely enough, I think most residents of Edinburgh quite like the name, and you often hear it being used for various things. It's probably just we see it as a link to our kind of scurrilous past. Anyway, next time you're enjoying a stroll in the Royal Mile, or maybe winding your way down one of their many narrow closes, try and think back then to what life would have been like not that long ago, in Old Reekie. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, and I'd just like to wish you at this stage all the very best from Scotland.